Uncle Dan took it one step further by looking at the biblical principle of going the second mile, based on Matthew 5:41, where it talks about when someone is forced to go 1 mile, go with them the second mile. We have an incredible opportunity each day to genuinely care for our guests. Go that second mile and make a difference. Our hospitality sets us apart. So what does this look like in a Chick-fil-A restaurant? Well, there's really two pieces that make up hospitality at Chick-fil-A: recipe for service and second mile service. Let's first break down our recipe for service. Just like we have a tried and true recipe for our craveable Chick-fil-A chicken sandwich, we have a tried and true recipe for our service. The recipe has two parts, the core 4 plus the 3 required second mile service behaviors. The first part of the recipe, the core 4, consists of creating eye contact, sharing a smile, speaking enthusiastically, and staying connected to make it personal. Then there's the second part, the 3 required second mile service behaviors: delivering meals for high needs guests, performing table touch-ins, and carrying large orders to cars. These 7 ingredients make up our recipe for service. They are required, and this is what guests tell us they love most about service at Chick-fil-A.
Anything else for you, Mr. Brock?
So that's our recipe for service. But the second piece of hospitality at Chick-fil-A is our second mile service. This is where we go above and beyond putting your personal touch of hospitality in your restaurant. It's about being genuine, proactive, and personal with your guests. Being genuine, actively listening to our guests, which includes body language. It's about leaning in, making eye contact, and giving them our full attention. Being proactive, anticipating our guests' needs. For example, holding the door for a guest. And finally, making it personal. This is an opportunity to connect with our guests. Maybe it's simply remembering a guest's favorite meal.
Chick-fil-A biscuit and a medium coffee. Any cream or sugar for you today?
Overall, we're empowering our team members to obey their warm-hearted impulses, to treat others the way that they would want to be treated. Let me share with you a couple of comments from guests who were impacted by team members following those impulses. First guest says she was completely blown away by the incredible service she received at Chick-fil-A. The staff were so incredibly friendly. One of them even rushed to escort her with an umbrella to the car in the rain. Another guest, who is a single mother, raved about how Chick-fil-A treats her. The staff always goes above and beyond to offer extra help. She explains this has brought tears to her eyes when she was having a rough day. You see, this is the beauty of hospitality at Chick-fil-A. It combines the recipe for service with your unique second mile service ideas and passion. You have the ability to offer signature services that best serve your guests. So why do we do all this? Because we care for each guest personally. Let's see what this looks like in our restaurants.
Sir, I can help you right down here. Good, how are you? Is this for dine-in or carry-out?
As guests enter the restaurant,
Hi, how are you doing, Adam?
they're greeted with a warm welcome. At the order point, in the dining room, or in the drive-thru, the team member is providing genuine core 4.
Hi, welcome to Chick-fil-A, sir. How may I serve you today?
The cashier provides clear direction to the guests after completing their order. For a large carry-out order, the team member says, "I'll be assisting you to your car." During the guest dining experience, table touch-ins are occurring about every 10 to 15 minutes.
I'll take your tray when you're finished, okay? All right, thanks for coming in today.
You can see the host or hostess is constantly assessing the needs of the guest, always looking to provide extra condiments and napkins, refreshing beverages, and clearing trays, while taking advantage of those moments to connect with the guest. All of these components make up our recipe for service. Some second mile service touches we saw were offering fresh ground pepper, remembering a guest's name,
Mr. Bill, I can help you right here.
genuinely listening to our guests, providing a high chair, and offering a fond farewell in the drive-thru.
Your biscuit. You have a wonderful day.
The concept and heart behind hospitality is simple, but executing it consistently can be very difficult. You have to have service process in place to be consistent.
That is the world we live in. That is the world we live in. It's the most distracted world, most distracted culture in the history of the world. In fact, let me read you some interesting statistics that have just come out recently. The Journal of Experimental Psychology, they did a study of 166 people and found out when you're at work and your phone buzzes, your work suddenly gets sloppier whether you answer the phone or not. Just the fact that your phone buzzes is such a distraction that the quality level of your work goes down. The Journal of Computer-Mediated Communication said that when people's phone rang and they couldn't get to it, their problem-solving skills decline, their pulse quickens, and their blood pressure spikes. Think about that just for a minute. Your blood pressure spikes just because your phone rings and you can't get to it. Applied Cognitive Psychology, another journal, studied students And they found out students that brought their phone into the classroom actually scored a grade level higher than students who didn't have their phone. Think about that for a minute. So what we've discovered is just having phones around is such an incredible distraction, whether we actually use them or not. I mean, that's really, really incredible. And that's why what's happening in New Jersey and Hawaii is so important. I can tell you that some cities in Europe right now are experimenting with padded utility poles. It's such a problem. Distraction, distraction, distraction. We live in an incredible culture of distraction. Which to a big degree is when I think of terms like a culture of hospitality, I always go back to that distraction factor. I think of the short window we have to make an impact in someone's life. I was at a digital summit. I was invited to a real high-level digital summit last year in Hollywood. All the major players were there: Facebook, Crackle, Awesomeness TV, Vice Media, YouTube. They were all there sitting around a table, and we just talked about what's working for you and what's not working for you. And one of the things we discussed was a study that had just come out about a year before on the fact that when you meet somebody today, now remember, we're so distracted, we have so many options, we're pulled in so many directions. The study indicates that when we meet someone for the first time today, we decide what we think of that person in the first 4 to 8 seconds. Now, really think about that for a minute. We haven't had time to talk to them. We haven't had time to get to know them at all. But we're being so distracted, and we have so many other options to do, and we're thinking about so many things that we've started making decisions about things we don't even know anything about. We decide what we think of people without ever getting to know them. Now, I've studied that because it's really meaningful to me and important to me in a media-centric world that I live in. And I've discovered that it's true for products and experience as well. So this is where hospitality comes into this whole equation. It means that in an 8-second world, I'm glad your pastor's message is anointed. I'm glad your worship is fantastic. But in an 8-second world, what's the parking experience like at your church? In an 8-second world, what does the lobby look like? In an 8-second world, who's the first person a new visitor meets when they walk in the door? Because that could make a huge, huge difference. So what do we do? What in the world do we do in that kind of an 8-second culture? First of all, I believe we create an environment, kind of an 8-second culture, if you will, in the church. Your job is to teach people just how important this is. You need to get your team together. You need to get your church leaders together and talk to them about this world we live in. People are making decisions right away. I know one church in the Midwest that has pinpointed 7 distinct areas from the street to the pew where they can interact and engage with a new visitor and try to impact their experience at the church. They know that people are making decisions from the moment they turn in off the street till they start pulling in the parking lot. They're already making decisions. Sadly, we just live in that world. Now, I'm not saying that's a good thing. I'm not saying I support it. I'm not saying that I like it. I'm saying it's the world we live in. And I think one of the reasons we as Christians have not made a stronger impact in our culture today is because we're simply behind the 8 ball. We're wishing for a world that doesn't exist anymore. We're wishing for a world when we were actually the dominant mode of thought, when our values were followed by most people.